Hello everyone and welcome back to Miranda Pitrone Art. I'm Miranda and I am back with you here to do another fun stone. This one is for spring. It's a little more advanced and it is larger, so it's going to be very involved, a little bit longer than usual. So I was looking through color palettes because sometimes if I'm stuck and I just want a little inspiration, I come here to Pinterest where I have a whole board devoted to lovely color combinations. So if ever you're stuck, feel free to come check this out. I usually have the latest ones that I've been looking at listed. So they have some wonderful, wonderful color palettes for spring. And so I ended up probably combining a few of these to do the stone today. It is definitely an explosion of colors here. As you can see, after the finished product is really colorful, really involved, and a lot of fun. Lots of different elements added in this one. So I hope that you'll take the challenge and come along and do this journey with me to check this out. I use a ton of different tools, paintbrushes to the etcher to the silicone ovals, even a couple acrylic rods in there, and each one makes a fun different shape and makes painting and doing different designs a lot easier. There are so many tools out there. I just like to show how versatile it is. Even something like a flathead screwdriver or erasers, things in your home, just dip them in paint and see what they do and test them out and try them next time on something that you're working on. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so I just want to say something really quick on the large dots of this stone. You're going to see the final project has them as just large, the bright green. But throughout the video, I had tested out a couple other dots see here, and I thought they looked like eyeballs, and I didn't like them. So rather than edit the entire thing, I just went back to all green, just so you know ahead of time, if you're following along. So here is our beautiful beauty starting out. I did a circle at about 1.5 inches out, and then one at 2.25 inches out, just for some guide. And we'll start in the center here with a large dot of that bluegrass green. And then we do the plus sign with our white dots, and then we're going to fill in. So I'm testing out the view on this, so let me know what you think. I know sometimes it's hard to see the angles of the camera, so I like to do multiple angles to just check it out. So I'm just using a liner brush here to kind of do some smaller dots inside that first ring to solidify it a little bit here. This is peony pink. So in between the larger white dots, I'm just going a little bit larger. And this paintbrush is from Princeton. It is the Angle Spot Detailer. All the items I use in my videos, I try to put links for you all to test them out. So there'll be a link in the description. Okay, so this is the etcher tool. And we're going to do some cute little teardrop shapes here. This is great for that because one end is a little larger and the other end is metallic, comes to a point. And you can see I'm just dotting a little bit of paint down and then pulling it into a little teardrop shape with that pointed end. I was really feeling a spring project. We keep getting snow here and I just want to see flowers and nice colors. So if I can't get it outside, we'll make it in the studio, right? Put these little teardrops in, and then we'll do a couple rounds of different colored teardrops in the center start zone. This is such a great red. A lot of them don't cover well, but this is Tuscan red from the 𝓚 Americana line. It's so rich and bright. And then especially after you varnish, it just pops. I absolutely love this red. So I'm just using the paintbrush this time to just put a little bigger dot down and then drag it out with the etcher tool. Okay, next up is this beautiful coral blush. And I'm going above the peony pinks to just kind of connect them in here, in between each of the red ones. So it's a little bit larger because you have a little bit more space. So they're getting gradually bigger with the teardrops. And then it's the same methodology, just put a dot and drag out to make a little teardrop shape. All the paints in this video are from DecoArt, and they don't need to really be mixed with anything. They're great right out of the bottle. Okay, so this, I mixed the peony pink, the red, and the coral blush, excuse me, to do those darker pink dots. And then I'm coming in here with this bright green. And I'm probably had a little too much coffee this morning. So I'm not as steady as I would like to be. You can see the difference in those two swipes. One's a little thicker that I did with the paintbrush, and I kind of wanted the tail to be skinnier. So I'm going to pull it with the etcher instead. Some days you just have to use the tools that work for you. So I'm just going around here with the 8 green swipes to kind of plot out our mandala design as we get larger going out here. These ones I want to not really look like a teardrop. I just want it the ball at the top with a stem. So I'm not going to continue to shape it. I'm just going to do one line down and connect it into the coral blush there. So in the interest of getting all the designs in on this one, it does go a little faster, but feel free to pause and go through the design section that you're at. I certainly didn't paint it this quickly. I like to enjoy the process and take my time, but this is a little bit faster just so it's not a 4-hour-long video. So this is Soft Jade. It's actually one of the multi-surface paints, and it's just such a lovely, lovely pale green. And then I mixed it with the bright green to get this a little bit lighter shade. We'll just do a couple swipes down either side of those bowl with the stem. If you're new to the channel and this seems a little advanced, I have plenty of other videos that are a little slower and stepped down a bit to kind of take your time and go through with a more beginner video, less involved designs. But I really encourage you to come back to this challenge for sure. Coming in here with a nice bright purple, which is actually a lavender that I mixed with some white. And I'm just doing some circles here with the brush. And it's about the size of a 3mm dotting tool. So if you have the rainbow set, it's usually the green ball end. Here's yet another shade of green. This is called Desert Cactus. And I'm just walking out the dots here with the etcher end, or the metal end of the etcher tool. Sometimes I like to leave the asymmetrical look, but I am going to go down both sides with this line of dots from the purple dots. There are so many different directions that a mandala design can go in. I know I've said before, it's like a choose your own adventure each time. You can just say, oh, I'm only going to do dots, or I'm only going to do swipes, or I'm going to mix it all up and, you know, put a little triangle here, an oval here. It's limitless, the possibilities. And that's a lot of times why I don't use a stencil when I do my mandalas, unless somebody asks me to try one. I generally just kind of freehanded it because I like the flow of them. My paint is just drying a little bit there. Didn't want to pull out, but we finished it. So the screen is not very forgiving with this color, but it is another shade of green that is very dark. It's called 𝓢𝓸𝓵𝓸𝓻. It's very like pine tree evergreen, that dark, dark green. So I'm just putting a little circle here of each. And it's just a shade larger than the 3mm. So this one is a little of the dark green mixed in with the desert. The desert cactus. And I'm just going to show you here from the side a few, but something happened and my computer crashed, so I didn't get to do the whole ring around to show you, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to put a couple down and next to each of the larger elements with the big green circle. I'm just going to put a desert cactus dot, and then I'm going to drag it into a little comma or apostrophe looking thing with the etcher. Let's see, this is the brush. And then you're going to take the metal pointy end, and then we drag it down into like a little apostrophe in this area. It's comma. And just kind of wrap it around those bright green swipes that we did earlier. So this is the outer ring of that first circle that was about 1.25 inches diameter. And then I'm going to do it all the way around on each of these elements. You can see there the little commas all around. We've had a lot of problems with storms lately, so I apologize for the fact that I didn't get it all the way around, but you get the idea. Okay, so this is a liner brush from 𝓟𝓸𝓵𝓸𝓻, and I'm just going to pull out some petals here with some periwinkle on one side, on the left side. And I call these swipes, but I guess in painting they're called comma strokes. If you're looking up painting videos and you're looking for techniques. This is called a comma stroke. A lot of people in the dot art world are calling them dot drags or swooshes. But see, it's really just a slow, steady, just draw it out to where you want the tail to end up. This periwinkle color looks so fantastic when it's matte and gloss as well. And I usually use a high gloss varnish, but the matte of this I just find very attractive. So just kind of a slow, steady petal shape on this side for our spring flower. And so you're just pushing down a little harder at the beginning to get the thicker end, and then these liner brushes do come to a point, so as you lift up at the other end, you get the tail, you get the pointed tail. So now for the other side, we're going to kind of overlap a little bit here with some purple pizzazz, but also another comma stroke here on the other side. And I'm starting over that periwinkle, over the top of it, and just kind of coming around, not giving it that petal angle, but just a solid curve into it. This is really such a nice, rich purple, too. I just wanted to slow it down here just so you all can really see it just is a relaxed, breathing, calm brush strokes. I know I've said before, all the names of it are very fast sounding, and it looks like somebody just kind of flick of your wrist and you get that swipe in there, but just take your time for the paint placement and you'll get it every time. You can use your tools to do these as well. At your tool, I'll show later in the video how the stylus, you can just drag the paint out with the ball end and get a nice little swipe there as well. It just takes a little bit of practice with whatever tool you're using. And you will get it, I promise. Practice on paper maybe first to see how long you can draw out the paint, or even cardstock. And that way you'll have sort of another element in your arsenal to add to your mandalas here. Okay, so each step of the way, because I don't plan it out, I'm just kind of like sketching in things and thinking about designs. You can see all those scratch marks on my stone, but once I varnish, they go away just because they're etched in. They're not pencil or anything. And this fun little silicone tool, the white end makes adorable ovals, but this petal end is useful as well to make these little tiny ovals. So I just grabbed some burnt umber here to tuck in some browns, and then I'm coming alongside it with some cocoa to do some dots at the base of each of those ovals. I know my lighting ultimately starts to make this look psychedelic, but I really just wanted those pops of spring color. You know, you have the brown branches, but there's green leaves coming up, and then I have crocuses that are purple coming up that just look beautiful, and daffodils that are yellow and just lovely. So I got inspired a lot by my yard, and then the color palettes always help to kind of solidify which colors to use. So this is a multi-surface satin lemon chiffon, which is a nice bright yellow, and I'm just putting down some circles here at the top of that oval that we put down of the brown. Now I'm coming in with the etcher, the gold end of the etcher tool, and carrying that cocoa out around each of these yellow dots, just doing one ring of the cocoa. And this, I slowed down a little so we can have a little time to catch up here. I just really wanted to fit this whole design into like around about an hour or so, because it seems to be a more amicable time for people to last watching the videos. But you always have it here. It's like a good book. You can come back and work on your piece as you want to. I've had a lot of requests for doing the larger pieces, even large canvas, which can take a long time, but cutting out bits and speeding it up a little allows me to show you the whole design. So I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say about this. And pop down in the comments and say hello. Even just give a emoji or where you're from if you don't want to make any comments about the video. But I'm always open to constructive criticism because I'm always trying to make these videos better for everyone. I love doing them. I hope you enjoy watching them. I know a lot of you have been with me for years, and I am so excited to see the comments each time, but also to say hello and hear how you're all doing on your own journey. It's so awesome too to see. I've been popping in the Facebook groups lately, and there are so many talented people painting now. It's wonderful. So even if you don't like my style, there are multiple people doing different YouTube videos on how to do the dot mandalas. I love how much those petals stand out. The purple. Okay, so I took a little bit of white and the pink and the lavender and just kind of made a more reddish magenta. So if you have a magenta, that'll work well for this. And I'm just putting a dot at the top of each petal. And you can see with the brush, it's not exactly like a push down dot type thing. When you get to the larger dots, you just kind of let the brush do the work a little bit and pull it around into a circle to get your dots. Okay, coming in with another small liner brush to just kind of line the edge of that purple pizzazz with some more lavender. But this lavender has a little bit more white in it. So you don't have to have all the colors that I use or that other people use. You can just mix and match and make your own palettes. Especially with these paints, they blend very well together. So I'm using my first swipe as a guide, and you can see it comes to the point you just kind of lift it up at the end to get your tail. And with the brushes, they're not running out of paint, so you can come back and kind of fix it if you want it a little thicker, like I lifted up too much on that earlier petal. So I just had to come back and put a little more paint down, but there are benefits to using the tools that you feel comfortable working with. And you'll have a lot less frustration. It'll be a more enjoyable experience. I really like the asymmetrical look, so I'm just going to leave that one lavender swipe down that side of the petal. And I'm going to come back in here with our little magenta color. Magenta color. and put a dot at the bottom. And then I think I'm going to use the etcher to kind of connect them with some daintier, like micro dots in a line. And you can see when the tool is totally cleaned off, it really can make some very small dots. Just tiny, tiny micro dots. Also, don't stress about doing the same amount of dots each time. Sometimes the sizing's a little different. I had 10 in one, 8 dots in another. It doesn't have to be exactly the same number in each one because your spacing and it's not going to be perfect, but it's art and it's going to be lovely. You just want to get that section of color in there. And then instead of going back to the palette each time, I like to steal from the dots that are here on the piece. Here's the above angle again, so you can see those tiny little dots in a line. And I'm going to grab some of the lavender again here just to kind of go down, but I'm going to use the larger end of the etcher, and you can see the dots are a little bit bigger, so it's the gold end of this tool to just walk some dots down that lavender swipe that we put on the side. And this is the multi-surface lavender, so it's a little bit brighter in color. And these ones too, when they dry, they self-cure, so you don't have to use a varnish if you're using these multi-surface paints. They're really good on mugs and glass. Okay, so with the gold end, I'm going to put a dot down, but then I'm going to flip it. This is the magenta again that I mixed. And we're just going to do another little comma inside our petal to give a nice, another block of that magenta color inside of our petals. And then just pull that little tail out as far as it'll go down to the other dot. So it's from the outer edge of the dot that I'm pulling, so you get that kind of rounded look. Okay, so going back to the brown, that burnt umber, using a 3mm dotting tool. These are the styluses. I'm going to put some plumpy dark brown dots here, and we're going to drag those out as well down to the purple dot, that light lavender circle here. So there's a lot of little commas in this, but it's making me think like growing in spring and roots and you can see I'm putting a considerable amount down too, just so I have enough to drag out a tail for them as well. So if I'm stealing from the dot, then pulling out the tail that I don't run out of paint. And again, it's all the way down to that light lavender circle. So now I am going to put in those large circles, and this is an acrylic rod. And these are handy for making the larger dots, so you can just kind of stamp it down there, see? Just be careful that you don't, well, some of the paint sometimes will have a string, and if you pull your tool away, you'll drop that paint right on your piece, which you don't want to do. So just make sure you pull it up straight so the paint falls back in the dot. So this is a nice bright green. The same bright green we used with our little circle, then pulled the stick down. And it's the 1/2 inch acrylic rod. So around those large dots, I'm gonna put some little petals here of the soft jade. And you can see to get that kind of point, I'm using the tool to put the paint down, but then I'm rocking it back and forth to kind of get those pointed edges for those little ovals so you get a little petal. This paint's a little thicker being the multi-surface, but if you have a thinner paint, it will make a pointier oval as well. So it's just fun to play with. And so one on either side, like we're growing a little flower with the first leaves here. So this is one of the silicone tools, and I keep trying to practice with these, to be honest. It is very challenging, I won't lie, but they can make swipes as well here, especially this pointy one. You just kind of use it like a brush where you're pushing down a little harder and then lift up so that you're just getting the point touching the piece. So these are good for cleaning up messes too, if you want to scrape paint off of your piece if you put something down you didn't mean to. These are helpful for that, but you can also paint with them. So you're just kind of pulling it in and then lifting up at the end. But again, you can take your time and just place the paint where you would like it to go, and it gets that nice shape with a pointed tail at the end. And these two, you can even reshape it and come back and just use the pointed tip to fix the tail or whatever. They're pretty versatile. But see, I don't use them very often, so it takes me a minute to just kind of get the right angle as well so that I'll be able to pull it around each of those larger circles. I need the right angle, being right-handed, just to kind of make sure that I am pulling it in the right direction and being able to stay close to that larger dot. Okay, so now with the etcher tool, and I put a little more white in that magenta, that's a little bit lighter and brighter. We're gonna do a little kind of fringy fan at the top of each of our petals here. And so I put one in the center just to kind of give me a guide, and then I do either side so that you're just kind of building upon that one center swipe to make this little fan type look with swipes. And so it's 1 in the middle and then 3 on either side. But again, like I said earlier, you don't have to count. It doesn't have to be the exact amount. We're just putting some fringy color in that area. Promise I'm not going to come count how many swipes you stuck in there. One thing I'll say about the metal end of this too is you should go a little slower with this because it helps to keep the paint wicked to your stone. So, I mean, it keeps the paint attached to the tool and the stone, so it will drag it out the way you want it. If you're picking it up too fast or dragging it out too fast, and sometimes it'll stop short and not give you that look that you want. So, well, this one got a little wonky, but we're just gonna go with it here and keep our whimsical fimbria look. I'm sure you're all doing amazing at this point, and I'm hoping you're enjoying this design. I love the explosion of color. I'm super excited about this one. I'm really looking forward to see it varnished too. I haven't varnished it yet, so. Okay, so now with the periwinkle, I'm gonna come in here and just kind of delineate that little fan that we put down. So I'm gonna do a larger dot at the top and walk the dots around until kind of like a rounded diamond shape, because it's gonna go around the fan and then cut back into the flower petal. So there's a little bit of an angle. Not too drastic like a square, but you can see we're just kind of rounding it around this little fan to connect it to the petal. And this is, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but this is the smallest dotting tool in the dotting stylus pack, the bent ones that I used. So again, this is just a multi-tool, multi-color. I just wanted you to be able to kind of get a glimpse that each tool can still do similar things. Another thing I'll say, when you get into using a lot of different colors rather than it looking like a circus, which isn't always a bad thing either, you know, if you carry the colors throughout the piece, like this lavender, you know, we've used it throughout this whole section, or the periwinkle. So we did the side of the petal, we just did around, and then we'll use some more of it towards the outer edge too. But that way you're carrying the colors throughout the piece and it doesn't look quite as chaotic. So with these, I'm not going all the way around like we did the first periwinkle. I'm just carrying it down to the corners because we're going to build upon this. And I blooped it right there. So these silicone tools, this is the flat one. I just scrape it off with the silicone tool. And because we have a base coat, I just toss a little of my base coat, which is black here, right back on it. And then go on my merry way. I just let that dry and work on other sections of the piece until that's dry. I just want to create. I'm not here to, you know, spend hours on sanding and do all that. So I generally just like it to be easy and simple. So with the background colors, it really is. You just scrape off the majority of the paint that you put down that you want removed, and then put a little of that base color down, and then go on painting. So that I'm just going to blend it out a little to kind of thin it. I use my finger here, but you can also use makeup brushes. Those work really well. I mean, not brushes, sponges. And you can see it's already drying because I thinned it out just enough. It's actually drying as I speak here. So this is the lavender multi-surface, but I did put a little bit of white in it to make it a little bit brighter. Just a little. And that's how you kind of get the ombre shades as well. So if you just wanted a round of purple that went from dark to light, you just do varying amounts of white or even a lighter purple each time, adding into it. Or if you can afford to buy every color that they have on the market, then you could have the full spectrum. Decor, actually really budget friendly, so I do have quite a few of their paints, but it's good to use what I have on the palette as well, because I'm not a fan of wasting, so I like to mix colors. So each ring, we're just putting a larger dot at the top and then let the paint run off the tool on the sides here just to work our way around. And each set has various sizes, so this is actually the paintbrush, but as far as the dotting tools, you have varying sizes on all ends of the ball styluses. So even the rainbow tools, a lot of them will have different sized ends. So not all sets are exactly the same depending on where you purchase them from. But generally the small end and the larger end go from about 0.5 to 3 millimeters. So this is the peony pink that we used in our center area with the teardrop shapes. And as I was speaking about, drawing your colors throughout the piece, this is the pink from the center, just bringing it out here to the edge. Okay, and next up I have that light lavender again. As you can see from the side, I'm just taking my time and walking it out, but each dot with the brushes, you just have to go a little lighter as you work your way around, as opposed to letting the paint run off a tool. With the paint brushes, you start off pushing down a little harder, and you do have the paint run off the tool, but it doesn't go as quickly as it would with a dotting tool. So you just kind of have to make the dots smaller yourself by less pressure. I really like to listen to calming music when I'm painting. What kind of things do you guys listen to when you're painting? I know some people have said in the past they prefer it just totally silent. And that works too. Not when you have a busy household, but but it is nice and relaxing. Sometimes some meditative music or waterfalls or storm sounds. I like those as well. But I'm just curious what you guys like to listen to. Okay, so we went periwinkle, and we did this bright purple, then lavender with white, then peony pink, then lavender with white. So I'm reversing the order that we came in through at the beginning. So this is back to that bright purple. Once you get the first ring or two too with the little dots, it helps a little bit to kind of hover over the first dot each time, and it kind of helps keep your symmetry. And then you just build upon that, build, 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 and then you'll get these bulky dot designs, which are really fun and great to look at, aesthetically pleasing. Now I'm using the purple pizzazz, which was the right-hand side of our petal, and I'm putting a larger dot at the top of each of these bulked up elements. So again, looks like I got a little ahead of myself and started the lining still in that other one, but I wanted to show you from the side here, putting those dots at the top. Sometimes you just have to not put a ton of paint. Sometimes with the dotting tools, it'll put a little too much paint on the side, and these stones curve around at the edge, so you don't want it dripping down. So I try to pull the paint up to the top of the dots, or just use a brush and then kind of push it into place enough that it holds. And now we'll come in with the liner brush to just kind of pull it out around. This is the purple pizzazz. I'm not sure what's coming over with the carrying of the design, but it looks a little blurrier in the right side. So on the left side here, you can see better anyway from the side where you're putting down the paint and then just lifting it up, sort of a flick at the end, not fast, but just tipping the brush, less pressure, so that you're getting to that pointed part of the brushes and kind of letting the brush do the work for you. So we did the purple pizzazz. We're going to go through and do that with the coral blush that we used in our center to bring that throughout the piece as well. And then I will do it again with the peony pink, so that we're just kind of bringing our colors throughout the piece. So I'm using my purple line as a guideline, literally just touching up against it where it is wet on wet. So you have to be cautious if you don't let the first round dry that they don't bleed too much into one another, but they will connect so that you have no space in between, and you just kind of pull it alongside and drag the paint together. The paint is the pink has been on the palette for a little bit, so it did get a little drier. So one little trick for that is you could put damp paper towels over it and just kind of keep your paint moist. So this is where I started. Just disregard this if you don't want the eyeball looking dots. I mean, this was a nice peacock teal, which still am debating going back with this, but I didn't like the eyeball looking elements, so, but these top dots, the blue's not bad. I don't mind the teal. It looks kind of nice, but I went back ultimately to just the full on green. Okay, so coming back here to work on the pink a little bit while I'm debating the larger dots, letting them dry because I can't just put that green back over it. But as you'll see, it ultimately went all back to large green. So just pulling the pink for another round here of bulking up our swipes on the side. Now I'm going to grab my silicone oval tool and go back to the brown, the burnt umber, and carry that out again here at the top of each of our elements for the green. I'm just holding it like a pencil, so it's not perpendicular, it's kind of off on an angle 45 degrees or so that you can get the full coverage of that little oval. So in the interest of saving time, I did not talk out the process of the curls and the scrolls here. And when you're adding elements, you'd want to make sure that the space that you want to put it in is enough in each section of your mandala. So I just did a round, just kind of etching in the little scrolls to make sure I could fit them on. I've tried either side, but my spacing was a little bit off, which is totally fine because I love the asymmetrical look. So we're only doing an S curl on either side. I mean, on one side to the right side. I tried them both there so you could see, but ultimately it's just going to be on the right side. So I'm using the etcher tool to come in and sort of do the micro dotting just because it's easier to kind of go around the tinier part at the top. And I start at the middle of the S, so you get the largest dots there at the center. And then as you work your way out around the curl, it looks a little more elegant and dainty because you have the smaller dots. I'm not sure if you can see, but on the large green dot next to where I'm painting, it cracked. And sometimes that'll happen with your paints if it doesn't dry, like the top dries too quickly, or if it's not mixed all the way, or if your paints are just getting older, sometimes that'll happen. So I'll just use a flow medium to come in and kind of amend that paint to rescue it for a little bit longer. But just a little tip there. So if your paints are cracking with the larger dots or more paint being put down, it could be multiple reasons, but usually adding a little flow medium to that paint will help. And once I varnish over it, you won't see that because I'll just put another dot of the green with the flow medium in it and then even it out. But again, I hate to waste, so in order to rescue your paints, you can try that too. Don't mix them with water. It does not help the integrity of the paint. Even the paint companies will tell you this. So that's why they make the flow medium to just kind of mix in and help it be a better consistency. Now I'm just debating what next for the elements. What do I want to do? And I think I'm going to come down here on the other side. I checked my spacing, and I'm going to use the 3mm dotting tool to come in with that white again on the other side of the brown ovals, and just kind of dot a line of thicker white dots down the side. You can see on some, if my spacing was a little bigger, I could have put a S scroll on that side too, but I'm just gonna tuck this down. So we still have the color being balanced. It's just a different design holding that color in the space for us. Here, I'm putting some of that desert cactus on top because I wanted to try to amend the blue, but as I said, I ended up not doing this ultimately. I went back over them all with green, but just so you can see, adding top dots can really change the look of the design. And this is a softer green, so it did tone down that big boom of blue, but I just, for my own purposes, I wasn't a fan. So now above our burnt umber ovals, I'm coming in with the bright green. I'm just putting a larger dot of that bright green at the top of each of our ovals here. We're going to give it a little crown look, so a larger dot in the middle and then two little dots of the green on either side. And so I went from the 3mm end probably down to the 1mm end. So larger dot down to the smaller dot with the dotting tools. So these are the angled styluses. You can see how easy a turntable really makes this type of work too when you're working on the outer edge. So the turntable I'll put in the description where I got mine too. But I find it really facilitates the edge work when you're working on something like these larger stones. Okay, you can see I'm using the green large stylus, 3mm, and I grabbed some cocoa. I'm putting it at the bottom end of the oval, so towards the inner part of the stone. And it just kind of highlights that oval a little more. The brown is fairly dark, also like that green, so. Okay, now I want to show you this little curly swoop thing you can do. I have no idea what you would call it. So curly swoop it is. But this is the periwinkle. And I just kind of wanted to not have such a bulk of the swipes, so I want a little added element here to just kind of curl it around and give it a little whimsical flair at the edges here. But I'm using the etcher to just kind of curl it around and then pull the tail out to follow along the peony pink swipe that we did last. And this periwinkle obviously has been on the palette for a little bit and it's getting a little tacky, but again, if I had put down a damp paper towel or didn't pour so much paint and then re-poured it, it would be more fluid. So that's something to be cognizant of when you're working with your paints, just if you want to keep them workable. The consistency stays better if they stay more fluid. And it'll work better for you. Ooh. I got a little chunk there. So you can see how far off the edge I am working. So it's very challenging sometimes if you get too much paint. You don't want it to slide down the side because I'm on the edge and you don't want it to dribble down. But you need enough paint to drag it around to do the elements. So it takes a little finesse, but I promise you guys will get the hang of it. All right, so as you can see, I am back to that little silicone petal tool. And we're grabbed some cocoa. So we're carrying that cocoa brown out here. And you can see with this one, I know the soft jade looked more ovally, but this one you can see it'll do the little points because it is a little more fluid. And I'm putting a little bit less on the tool to get that point at the top of each of these little ovals. I think maybe you could see it better on the left side view. These little elements are starting to look like pineapples now. Oop. I have no idea. It overlapped. So I'm just going to leave this one in here and fix it here. All right. So we're going back to the magenta with a dotting stylus here to show you that you can do the swipes with the stylus as well. And this is the smaller end. So I know if I don't put a ton of paint on, it will make a shorter little swipe here. Just from practice. It's just from practicing with it. So I encourage you to do that if this is what you're using for tools. You can still swipe even with the larger one too. So with this purple pizzazz, we're going to do a little one on the right and then we're going to pull this long one out on the left and follow it all the way down the spot where we have our dots. So it's going to tuck into the right side of the burnt umber ovals. I'm going to flip this tool around for this one because I didn't want it to be thick all the way down. But sometimes, again, it's hard to shape on the sides of the stones. So you just got to use what you got. The larger tool would have made it a fatter swipe all the way down the side, a lot thicker than I wanted it to be. So, but see here, I'm going to lose out the paint, but I just want to grab it from the tail and drag it out. So sometimes it may go a certain distance, but you need it a little bit farther. You can add a little more paint, or you can just grab the last part where it had attached. See, this one is slower and it went farther, but if you just take your time, it'll stay wicked to the stone where you're connected. That paint will pull out into a nice little tail. And if you don't, and that disconnects, then you can just grab that last end of the tail and then just pull it to a smaller section. See, this one I have to come back and just kind of grab it a little. You don't want to go all the way to the top because it'll be heavier paint load and then it'll be thicker. So you don't want it thicker at the bottom if this was your look that you were going for. But And then just slowly kind of finagle it into the space that you want it to go. This is one of the fun challenges of stones, is you're off the edge. So here is a paint pen from Artistro, and I haven't used these in a while, so I decided to bring it out because I had been given another set of brush markers, and I was excited that there are more and more paint markers, paint pens coming out onto the market now that you can varnish over without having them bleed. It's like the manufacturers finally understand that we want to put a clear coat on to protect our whole piece. Otherwise, we can't use these. And we're not just using them on paper. They're very versatile. So I'm doing a very long kind of viney S curl. It's just a big giant S down the whole length of that element. So it's a longer swipe. You're following it all the way down to the top of that purple pizzazz swipe. And this I was hoping kind of, to get a little more leafy, springy look so that it looks a little more organic. I'm going to put some leaves on these vines in just a second here because I have a paint that'll match. It'll match this color of the emerald green. So DecoArt has this awesome emerald metallic extreme sheen, and I'm going to come in here with our petal maker. Also makes these adorable little leaves. Oh, and see, the extreme sheen has that tail, so you have to be careful pulling your tool out, and this is on the side, so I'll just have to go back over that with black after. But I am not a botanist, so we're not going to worry about staggering it the way it would truly be on some. Some leaves are staggered, some are right next to one another in parallel, but I just want to add some leaves in here to give us that springy look. I did major in biology, and I did botany as well for my classes, but that's not imperative to making art. What classes do you guys have you taken in the past that you may or may not ever use? I always find that funny to have useless little knowledge tidbits. I think I should go for Jeopardy maybe. That would be more helpful. So I want to just point out here, look at the large dots. I had put that dark green in the center of the desert cactus, and it just looks like eyeballs to me. So, but if you were going for a peacock look, that might be good. If you were doing peacock feathers, you could do that sort of leveling of the dots. Those kind of colors are where that ended up, but that wasn't my idea that I had in mind for this mandala. I wanted just more of a vibrant spring, pops of color, like greens and colors. So I went back over that ultimately with the green, the bright green. So each of these little vines is getting 4 little petal leaves with the emerald green extreme sheen. See, I almost got another paint drip on that one. And then I'm just tucking in. I'm going to steal because I put too much paint there and I don't want it to dribble down. So I stole from that leaf to put these other ones down. So the extreme scene's a little thicker. You can see we're not getting quite at the points that we got with the cocoa. I need to put less on the tool if I want the points, much less. But I'm really enjoying the look of this. Give it a little extra leafy look. So I'm just gonna make sure I can fit them in there. Just gotta turn it a little bit sometimes. The spacing again, gets a little tighter in some spots. Okay, I'm just going to carry the white out here with a couple of dots at the top of our cocoa petals here. Cocoa petals, that sounds like a cereal. It's Cocoa Pebbles. But our cocoa petals here needed a little brightening up, and we need to carry the white out. I just, in my own opinion. So we'll do a couple dots out here. And then I'm going to bring that coral blush in on either side of our brown and purple petals here. I had that space when I looked at it. Just needed something. It needed a little bright pep. So between the dark brown and the dark green, we'll just put some of that coral, and then we'll grab our bright lemon chiffon here. I added a little bit of white to this lemon chiffon so that I can top dot the other yellow dots here. Can't really see it that well, but I'm just going to top dot it here to highlight those yellow dots a little bit. And I'm just kind of looking over where we have spaces and looking at the piece overall on my screen, or I'll take pictures, and I think I just need a little bit of yellow carried through to the outer rim here above our cocoa petals. Let me show you that from the side because it's not the greatest view from above. You can see too, then I went over all of those green dots back with the bright green. So here is our final color explosion. The spring has sprung. It's wonderful. I'm super excited about this piece, and I can't wait to see it varnished. So I'll probably tack that on to the end of the video here for y'all if you want to check out the varnish. And it was so many tools, such a great amount of color. I hope you guys enjoyed creating this with me today. And now I'm gonna go and varnish it and get it all set, and I will show you the after finale when it's varnished. Okay, so this is the before, and as you can see that green is drying on the larger dots. This is not varnished. And I'm going to varnish even over that paint pen because they don't smear. It's great. So I'll pop that video on here as soon as I get the varnish on the piece. And here it is, totally varnished. It looks like it has lines in it, but that's my ring light reflecting off of it. Let me see if maybe I can switch the light to a softer light. This is a softer light, but it's still really bright, so you can see the ring shape, but the varnish is all set. And I can actually, I might put another coat on it if I were to do this, but I could actually put these stones right outside too on our porch, or I've even put them in the gardens before. So it is made of powder plaster, but after I put the varnish on, it's Liquitex Professionals. And it looks like that. And then I think it actually has a new version with a pink label. But they are, it's UV resistant, it stops colors from fading, and it is waterproof. So they are sealed and ready to go. I tried to prop it up here to give you a little bit better angle to look at it and not have it be so bright. I apologize, but my studio's in my basement these days, so when the sun comes out today, then I could probably bring it out and get better pictures, but it gives you a good idea of how lovely it can be with the varnish. Well, I just wanted to give you one last look at all the things we used here today to make this fun creation. And I really hope you guys enjoyed doing this with me. Feel free to leave comments below, constructive criticism, just say hi. But yeah, most of the links I try to find for you and put in the description. So if you want to try out these things yourselves, they should be down there with links to go check them out. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome day. Hope you loved this spring stone that I did here for you. I love how detailed it is. And yeah, all right, happy painting, everyone. I will see you again soon.